Hello and welcome to choir. So for today, I want to go quickly through what you were supposed to do and then get you started on your notes for today. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to complete your bell work assignment on Flipgrid. You know how to do that already. Then you should be watching this instruction video, and then you're going to complete the classical notes, and of course, as always, fill out your attendance form. Now, your classical notes is what I want to talk to you guys about. So when you click on classical notes, it should take you to your own Google document that will let you fill out some notes here. So first things first, I want to give you some information to put in already, and then I'm going to tell you what you're going to do as your assignment for today. So as you know, over the course of this semester, we have looked at some of the different musical periods in history. So the very first one that we looked at was the medieval period of music in history, and we learned about the chant music that was kind of dronish and it was monotone, and it was kind of the first music that came about. And then after that came the Renaissance period, where music suddenly became a little bit more exciting. We had something called polyphony. If you are not remembering what I'm talking about, remember to go back and look at your notes. We talked about Renaissance music and how they added more sounds to it. And then the third period of music that we talked about was the Baroque period, and Baroque music started being extremely elaborate with lots of intricate details. Even the architecture was super exciting. So there was just almost too much noise. And we listened to some of the music from each of these periods where it was super simple music in the very beginning, and then it became slightly more intricate and then even more detailed in the Baroque period. Now we're moving past the Baroque period into the classical period. So the first thing that I want you to write down is that the classical period lasted from 1750 to 1825. So we ended the Baroque period in 1750, and that's where we're picking up in the classical period. So this is our very next period, the classical period. Now, we're going to talk about what the classical period itself means later in this in the next couple weeks. But for now, I just want you to recognize that there is a classical period of music history, and it was from 1750 to 1825. Now, before we get into the classical period, tomorrow and in the coming days and weeks, I want us to first set a scene for what was happening around the rest of the world. What was happening in the general world as music was being developed in this classical period. So I'm going to let you guys do some research on your own and find these answers in the next day. So there are lots of different things from 1750 to 1825 that were changing around the world. A lot of big historical moments, and I want you guys to do some research and find the answers yourself. So I'm going to give you some hints for them as you're researching in this assignment. In 1751, you need to find out who discovered what. And now I want you to recognize that the word discovers here is in quotation mark, because a lot of people will say that this person invented something, and you're going to try to find out what was invented in 1751, but it's not. What he invented isn't necessarily something that you can invent. It's more something that kind of just exists. So he discovered it is the more appropriate term to say. So see if you can find something that was discovered or invented in 1751 and put it here, and who invented it. And then in 1775 to 1781, there was a certain event called the something revolution, and there is a famous moment called Paul Revere's something something in this event. So you need to find out what this event was called. 1787, there was a certain document from the US that was ratified. Figure out what that was. In 1789, there was a certain person that was inaugurated. Figure out what inaugurated means, and then figure out who was inaugurated in 1789. Then in 1789 to 1795, there was another event. What was that event? I will tell you this answer and this answer are not the same. So make sure that you get these correct and in their correct spots. And then something was purchased. There was the blank purchase in 1803. So do some research, try to find out these answers. And then finally, of course, in 1812, to 1814, there was a battle called the War of 1812. And there was a certain song that is extremely famous in our country specifically that was written during this war. And tomorrow, I'm going to go through these answers with you guys so you can check them. So don't be too worried. I'm just giving you points for effort, and we're going to check your answers tomorrow, and you can correct them when we check them tomorrow in our video tomorrow. So try to find the answers on your own today. I'm excited to see what you guys uncover. And then this second part, I'm just going to tell you guys about now so you can fill in these answers now. So this is happening. These were events that were happening all over the world. This is specifically talking about the music situation in colonial America during the classical period, so from 1750 to 1825. So in 1750, in colonial America, we were kind of just getting set up. Remember that we have come from the Baroque period, so America is still pretty young, and people aren't necessarily in the space to be professional musicians just yet, because colonial America was being developed. So most of the people that you had in America, specifically, the people were very busy creating homesteads or building cities. So most people had little time for formal art music. So when we say formal art music, that means that in England or in Europe or in other countries around the world, you had advanced music. So you had people like Mozart and Beethoven in England and in Europe, and these fancy and advanced concerts, but you didn't have the same situation in America because our cities and our concert halls weren't even being necessarily built just yet. So most people had very little time for formal art music, and most people lived in rural areas. So the word is spelled Rural. So rural areas. So most things were very small and did not have the big spaces or the professional areas for formal art music. Okay, colonial people often made their own music, so it wasn't a situation in which they could go and professionally listen or listen to professionals perform. Instead, they were making their own music, and the word that we use to describe people who make their own music who aren't professional is an amateur. So an amateur, specifically, when we're talking about an amateur in a musical situation, it means somebody who creates music basically creates music for the fun or the joy of music. That's what an amateur is, and it comes actually from the French word. If you're in 8th grade, it's from a French word, aimer, which means to love something. So when we say an amateur, it means that they really love that activity, but they're not a professional at it, but they're just doing it for the love of that activity. A professional is the opposite of an amateur. It means that you are paid to create music. When you are talking about a professional musician, that means that they are being paid to create music, whereas an amateur musician is somebody who is just kind of doing music for the fun of it or for the personal joy of it. All right, so you should have these notes filled out from what I just talked to you about, and then these notes are the ones that you are going to do some research today and try to find these answers today. And like I said, don't be too stressed if you can't find an answer. We'll go over all of them tomorrow, but I hope you have a lot of fun looking for them today, and I am excited to talk more with you guys tomorrow about the classical period.